Hello everyone, I'm Chris Wynn. Welcome to the ROKER RAPPORT podcast in association with the Sunderland Community Soup Kitchen as we approach the opening day of the 2022-23 season back in the Championship. And we open up with a home fixture live on Sky against a useful Coventry City side that finished right smack bang in the middle of the table last season, which was their second year in the Championship following their promotion from League One. So to help us bring us up to speed with all the latest regarding the Sky Blues, who are very pleased to have the company of Glenn Watkin from Sky Blue Fans TV. Hello, Glenn.
Hello, Chris. Thank you for having us on tonight.
No, thank you for joining us. Welcome to the ROKER RAPPORT podcast. How are you keeping, mate?
I'm not too bad. Looking forward to some football. I'm getting a bit bored with watching cricket and the other stuff, so I'll be glad to get back to some football.
I was just about to say, I mean, in terms of like Sky Blue Fans TV, I mean, are things starting to ramp up? Are you kind of looking forward to getting busy again in terms of your coverage?
We've actually been quite busy this summer, actually. We've been doing a few things. We had BBC Radio one big weekend at Coventry, so we recorded some content with some fans there. We've been doing a few pods with some local people, and also one of my colleagues, Ken, went over to Spain where we had our pre-season. I think it's the Pintar Stadium that we played at. I know he obviously recorded some stuff over there with some fans, so we've actually not really had much of a break, to be honest. We've kept quite busy, and we've just hit 100 pods now, so that's quite good. We've not been going for more than a year. We're quite excited. Yeah, it's enjoyable. It started as a bit of fun, and it's kind of just got to a weekly occurrence, and we have a good laugh. We meet up for a few beers at games, we go for some food. So yeah, it's been a nice connection. So yeah, we're looking forward to the football season starting. Can't start soon enough. It's just a bit of a shame that it's on Sky and it's a 12 o'clock kickoff on Sunday, which is going to be a bit of a nightmare for a lot of the fans to get up to with the train strikes. But yeah, it should be a good game. I think there's a lot of fans looking forward to it, and it's Sunderland, and there's no love lost between the two clubs. Let's put it that way.
Well, I'll come on to that, I'm sure, in a little bit. But, I mean, Sunderland have a kind of fans TV. In fact, I think we have quite a few fan TV kind of setups that cover the club. And probably if you're up at the stadium like the weekend, you'll probably see them kind of dotted around filming outside the ground. But, I mean, do you do a similar thing and kind of try and pull in fans who've kind of maybe had a few sherbets outside the ground kind of before and after the game, or do you do things a bit different?
We try and avoid being a bit like Arsenal fan TV. We don't really want to be sensationalist and just almost caricatures on it. So we basically started out, we've got fans just ourselves as a group of fans talking about the game and stuff. Obviously then we've added people to the team, got people that go out. So there's a couple of people, Miles and Ken, regularly go on the away travel, so they've started recording stuff on the transport. We have basically our own pub called the Sky Blue Tavern, which is basically a pub which serves food, and it's all Coventry City memorabilia, so it's got shirts and everything up, and they run the away transport. So it's a nice little place for Cov fans to go and meet up to watch the game. Obviously there'll be a load of fans there watching the game on Sunday in Sky. There'll be loads of fans going up on the coaches, so that's good. So yeah, we do start doing video content and audio content with fans, but we try not to go overboard where you get people just, I don't want to use idiots because it's not the right word, but yeah, I don't want it to be like a bit of a joke. I think you can have a laugh and disagree with. We do have some Cov fans that have some really bizarre takes on things, but yeah, I think we try and give it a sensible feel to it. We don't let people on if they're going to go and start. I think we'd rather have someone who's going to have a genuine, consistent debate and conversation about players. So yeah, I think we'll have people on who'll criticise the team, the management, the board, etc. That's fine. But I think it's the way that they do it. So yeah, we are a fans channel, but I don't think we do it the same way that other maybe fans channels do. And we're kind of just seeing how it goes this season. So we're going to look to film stuff with fans, etc. And we'll take it from there and see how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, as we'll get into it, I mean, it has been a pretty tough decade or so for Coventry City, you know, years in League One and then even a year in League Two, which we'll come on to in a bit more detail. But I'm old enough to kind of think of Coventry City as a Premier League club, or even when I was young, a First Division club as it used to be in my childhood. So, I mean, how far does your love of Coventry go back? And was it a matter of geography that you come to follow them, or family ties, or how did you come to be a Coventry fan?
Well, funny enough, we did a pod on Sunday with a local band called the Institutes, and we're talking about the first football match we went to. My first football match was Aston Villa v Wimbledon. So it was in the era of like Big Ron, Daly and Atkinson, Dean Saunders, Steve Staunton, all those lot. So yeah, that was my first football match I went to as a Cov fan. That's really not anything to be proud of, and I don't really want to say that. It's probably the only time I've enjoyed a trip to Villa Park, because every other time we went there, we got beat as Cov fans. So yeah, my first game, my dad used to do the Sky Blue pools. We had a bookmakers across the road from where I used to live. They used to go to the Cov games, so we used to get a lift with them. My first game was Mick Quinn's debut, scored twice. We were 2-0 up and lost 3-2 to Man City somehow. I think Noel Quinn played, Terry Phelan. So yeah, that was my first Cov game I lost. The irony is my son Ben, who's my eldest, his first Cov game was a loss to City in the FA Cup, which was just one of those days, and I don't think you ever forgive Lee Burge for getting sent off, or you guys had. And my youngest, Jacob, who's not really a football fan, his first game saw us lose 2-1 to Luton. My second game, we beat Liverpool 5-1, so I was hooked. We absolutely were on fire that day. Jamie Redknapp got sent off, so yeah, it was brilliant. And we beat Liverpool, and everyone at school was Liverpool, Man United, Arsenal. So yeah, I was hooked from there. So it's quite good. I'd actually seen Liverpool's 2 record Premier League defeats, because I saw them obviously lose 5-1 to Cov, and I saw them lose 6-1 against Stoke, because my dad's from Stoke, so we went and watched Gerrard's last game. So there was 2 record defeats until Villa spanked them 7-2, I think, in lockdown, obviously behind closed doors. So yeah, I watched Cov with dad for the rest of the season, stayed up actually quite easily that season. Phil Neal, I think, took over from Bobby Gould. Then the next season, I think I got a season ticket. I was there watching us pretty much till, I think it was 96, 97. Obviously, then I went to college and started getting a job and didn't really go up that much. But yeah, I had some great memories. I went playing Sunderland. I think Michael Bridges was playing for you guys, and we drew 2-2, and there was loads of snow. Dublin got sent off for booting Michael Bridges and got a 7-game ban because he got sent off the next game because you didn't get automatically suspended. And I always remember it because there was snowballs and stuff being thrown at Perez. Lionel Perez was your goalkeeper, and one of the lads I know, he got escorted out because they thought he'd thrown a snowball. The steward, it wasn't him, it was somebody else, and he got frog marched out the ground. But yeah, we had some great memories. Like I said, we beat Chelsea twice on the opening day of the season. We won 3-0 at Arsenal away at Highbury. Quinn scored a hat-trick. So yeah, we smashed Blackburn. So yeah, we had some really, really good players looking back at it. And you don't realise how much you appreciate playing Wimbledon on a Saturday in the Premier League when you're playing Morecambe or Forest Green do the double over you in League Two, or Newport County beat you 1-0 at home when your goalie throws the ball in the back of the net. So yeah, there's some great memories. Kind of didn't really go that much when I was working. I picked the odd game up. Kind of only really got back into Cov properly. I think it was around the time that they returned to the Rico after being at Sixfields. I think the Gillingham game, which 1-0, and we obviously sold it out. We sold out the ground. It was on Sky. Me and my dad went back. And then I think towards the end of the season, my eldest Ben started to go, and then we got season tickets, and we've hardly missed a home game since. And yeah, my Ben thinks it's brilliant because he's seen us at Wembley, win at Wembley twice. He's seen us beat Stoke City, who are a Premier League side. He's been to Brighton, he's been to Watford, he's been to Southampton. He thinks it's a whale of a time. And like I saw us get knocked out at home by Gillingham or other till Tranmere absolutely obliterating us. So yeah, he thinks it's about last being a Cov fan, and I'm like, no, it isn't. There's some real bad times. You're on the upward climb.
Well, again, we'll get on to some of those dark times. So apologies in advance, but yeah, I was going to say, some of those memories as well. I remember Mick Quinn's hat trick at Highbury and that celebration, that stupid chicken dance thing he did afterwards. I remember that as well. But I mean, my early memories of Coventry go back to kind of the late days of John Sillett, with the likes of Brian Kilcline, Cyril Regis, and David Speedy, or I'm sure I'll mention again in a minute. But and that was just before Terry Butcher took charge, so we shared your pain, in terms of having Terry Butcher as a manager and a player manager. But there is an odd relationship. You kind of touched on it earlier. There's an odd relationship between Sunderland and Coventry. I mean, it stems back, for those old enough to 1977. All those allegations that centred around what Jimmy Hill did or didn't do, and all of that sort of stuff. Then there was the the Gary Bennett and David Speedy having a cuddle in amongst the Sunderland fans in the League Cup quarter final in 89-90, and then we had 1997, which was all a bit odd, the game kicking off late, but we got beat at Wimbledon anyway. And I mean, for me, and I mean this in the nicest sense, I mean, I don't really care about Coventry City, if that makes sense. To me, there isn't really that rivalry, but there is some who do see the two clubs as having that sort of rivalry. I mean, are there any Coventry fans that build this game up to be a bit more than some of the others because of that history?
It's weird because Coventry don't really have a rival. Villa don't see us as a rival. Leicester don't. So we haven't really got an out and out rival on it. I think it's just Sunderland have kind of got that bit of, I don't know. We've kind of just shared that much together. The clubs are kind of intertwined in a weird way, and I wouldn't want Sunderland to go down this season, but then I think there's other Cov fans who probably think, yeah, I want Sunderland to go down, and I'm like, I just don't really get it. It's a bit odd. I don't really have any problem with Sunderland fans. It was ironic. We played, I think it was at the CBS where Catamol scored for you guys and Johnson Clark Harris equalised for Cov, and obviously there's a bit of trouble after the game. I got the train back, and everyone on the train, Sunderland fans, because it was absolutely chocker full of people because they're useless with the trains. It was sound. I've never had a problem. But then obviously I went up for the 5-4 game, and it just had that atmosphere to it. And there's only been a couple of times I've been to a football ground where I felt I'm a bit worried. Not in it, and I suppose it's because I was with Ben as well, and that probably was, and he's young. Yeah, I mean, I watched the playoff final, and I was like Sunderland, and I was like, to be fair, Sunderland deserved it. And I think that you generally speak to most Cov fans, they think if we wanted any team first game of the season, we didn't want Sunderland. I don't think any team would want to go to Sunderland first game of the season. They're going to be absolutely buzzing on it. So I just don't see it as a rivalry. I just think there's always an idiot minority, unfortunately. You don't need, if people there with families, like there was idiots throwing stuff at the 5-4 game, and obviously we got on the coach on the way back, and there was loads of fans lining up on the side and thinking, no, they're going to throw something in through one of the windows. You don't want that to be your experience of a football match. So no, I don't see them as a rival. I hope they stay up because I genuinely think Alex Neil's a good manager. I think you've got some good players, but it's not going to be easy to stay up. The Championship's a slog on it. But yeah, I think it's just a bit of a silly rivalry. It's like we've had arguments with Borough, Middlesbrough this season, Burnley, and I'm sure we'll find somebody else to have a fallout with or something.
Well, I mean, just getting onto that kind of trajectory we're talking about with Coventry and where you've kind of come from, because I mean, as you said, Coventry for years and years just kind of clung on to that Premier League status, but eventually they went down in 2001. And then it kind of bobbed around the Championship until, 10 years later when things really started to go downhill, when the club was relegated to League One in 2012. And then it even snowballed from there because the club went in administration a year later. Then you had to play home games at Northampton. You mentioned Sixfields earlier on. Then there was years of fan protests. Then relegation to League Two for the first time in 2017. I mean, the problems just seem to keep on racking up for the club. Did it just become a bit exhausting following the club when it was just one thing after another?
I think it became very toxic. And I think the problem we had is we have majority of the time a real good reputation with fans, with other clubs now. I think there was a period of time where we were doing the fans protests. There was the infamous one that I remember is we played Sheffield United on Sky on a Thursday night. We lost 2-1, and it was just the most horrible experience. There was loads of like fans with whistles. There was fans running around. There were people running on the pitch. It was just such a horrible atmosphere and game to watch. And I think that was the problem with that is we got a bad reputation on the back of that. And I get that we were trying to fight for the club and do it, but I think we risked alienating the fan base on it and other fans. And I think we almost become a bit of a mocking, a laughing stock. I mean, the classic example was the season at St Andrews. If I had £1 for every away fan that chanted, aren't you supposed to be at home? Or this ground's too big for you and blah, 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 blah. And it was just like, yeah. But it was kind of when that season and we got up, I think most people in the league then saw us as the best team in the league and appreciated the fact that we'd got it. We obviously went and did the Checkatrade Trophy where we took a massive following there, and obviously then we kind of turned it and got people back on side because now we're a team that people look at and say, I like watching Coventry City play. The amount of plaudits we get now is really, really good. But yeah, there was a time where you wouldn't really be proud to say I'm a Cov City fan, because what we're famous for, a club that's left the city twice, albeit both times probably were extenuating circumstances outside the football club, but more could have been done to help that. And we're famous for running on pitches and pitching and stopping games and just general protests about it. And we had no direction, no leadership. And the positive, the only good thing Sisu did was A, getting Mark Robins back, and B, getting David Body on board. And once they got those two back, Robins back and Body on board, it started as having people who knew what they were doing and had a semblance of a brain and knew what the plan was and where we were going to go. Tony Mowbray, I mean, he's got North East connections, love him to bits, played some great football. But if you build your team around 3 loanees, which is what he did in Armstrong, Kent and Jacob Murphy, there was no chance in hell of any of them staying at Cov past that season. And once Kent went back, we had no plan B and we just dropped like a stone and we threw away what should have been a promotion season. And then he's done the same at Blackburn. He's relied on loans and then just, see you later, Blackburn, I'm not renewing my contract, and Blackburn are a mess waiting to happen on it. So that was the downside on it. We had Stephen Presley, who was a decent manager, but not really good enough. We had Andy Thorne, should have never had him in charge. He was a good coach, but he wasn't a manager. We had Chris Coleman, who you guys all know had brilliant ears. Ian Dowie. We just turned into a cycle of managers where we'd have a manager 12 to 18 months if we were lucky, and then see you on. You rebuild, and you just end up with players from a manager over to another manager to another manager to another manager, much like Sunderland. So yeah, we've turned the corner. We're on the way back. We played good football. I enjoy watching us. Last season's the most enjoyable Cov season I've had probably since the Entertainers season, where we had Hadji, Cheapo, Huckabee, Dublin, Robbie Keane, that mid-90s period where we were really good. Boateng, McAllister. We had some really, really, really good players and played some really, really good football on it. And that's the thing, you want to see good football.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you mentioned kind of going down to League Two, but Coventry got promoted for the first time of asking from League Two. And I mean, going back, I mean, although there was obviously the FA Cup win in 1987 with that kind of pretty epic diving header from Keith Ouch, and I'm pretty sure it was our own Gary Bennett's brother Dave who delivered the cross as well.
Yeah, it was.
But that season it was amazing when I read up. Actually, it was the first time the club had finished in the top 6 in a league season since 1970, which is kind of going, knocking on 50 years. Finishing in the top 6 after a full league season. I mean, so that must have just felt like a huge turning point that the club were on the up, because they'd finished in the top 6 in the league, but also got back up at the first time of asking. Yeah,
it was kind of a weird season because we had started reasonably well. Then we had a bit of a dip. Then we lost a load of key players. Obviously, Jody Jones did his ACL after flying and was really, really on form. And Mark Robins kind of had to rebuild the team and bring a couple of youngsters in. And then we had the cup run, which helped us to a degree, but didn't help us. And then we kind of were in a bit of trouble. I think we played Luton and we drew 2-2. And I think we had Lincoln where we got beat 4-2 at home. And I was like, we might be in a bit of trouble here. But we then just clicked into gear. We kind of stumbled into the playoffs. We drew 0-0 with Morecambe where neither team wanted to lose, which was I suppose that would be the closest thing to the infamous Bristol City Cov game, what it would be like doing that. Yeah. So yeah, that was quite an experience when neither team wanted to attack or have a go. Then we had Notts County, where I see it as a bit of a sliding doors moment, because we definitely got the luck in the 2 games. Obviously, the penalty we got at home was a bit lucky. And then away game, we had a goal disallowed for offside that wasn't offside, and we scored 2 goals that were offside on it. So yeah, we got a bit of luck with that. But I think once we beat Notts County, I think Exeter in the final, I don't say it was a foregone conclusion, but I've spoke to a person who was on the Exeter board, and I think they thought they were heavily underdogs against Coventry. We just destroyed them, and we scored 3 wonder goals. I mean, the goals we scored at Wembley have all been crackers. To be fair, we don't do a goal at Wembley that's not memorable on it. But yeah, it was a weird season because we dropped points against some absolute bang average team. We lost to Morecambe. Morecambe drew with us. We lost to Forest Green home and away. We lost to Newport and drew at home. So yeah, we threw points against some really dodgy teams, but we just beat the teams that we needed to beat. So yeah, it was a good season, and then we got up to League One, consolidated, had a real good season, and then obviously we had the COVID season. We're back at Birmingham, which was quite upsetting, to be honest, because I remember being at this Rico for like a monster truck event, and I thought it was the last time that I would see that stadium, because I thought we're not going to come back. We're done and dusted. I don't know, we were going to come back in less than a year's time. But yeah, I walked out in tears. I was like, it was an absolute place that I loved at times. I absolutely hated it on other times. But yeah, it was kind of weird going into that COVID season. Obviously, there were expectations. I don't think any Cov fan expected us to go up as champions as we did. So it was very, very strange.
Yeah, you mentioned that COVID impact season, and you mentioned even then the club were ground sharing with Birmingham City. But it was only kind of when you returned to the Championship that Coventry were able to return to what used to be the Rico Arena and now is the Coventry Building Society Arena, I think. And you signed a new 10-year deal to play there and carry on playing there. So what is the current ownership situation, and is the club finally on a sound footing behind the scenes?
I think we obviously being at Birmingham in hindsight looks a blessing, because we didn't incur the costs obviously of having an empty stadium. If you look at obviously what happened with Wasps through the current owners, they obviously lost out on a lot of money due to COVID, and obviously they have suffered a bit with their gates. Obviously, the novelty values kind of wore off. There's an argument maybe they had burnt some bridges with the local community with bombing Cov off, and that was kind of part of the reason why the olive branch was extended to come back. Obviously, it helped that they've got a guy on board, Stephen Vaughan, who has football connections. So him working with Dave Bodies helped. So I think we're on a very sound footing. I don't think we're financially up to where we would be. I think there's obviously debts that we have to pay off. We still have loans that money's owed to Sisu. But the positive is we've sold a record amount of season tickets this year. Our kit sales are through the roof because Hummel are doing an absolute smashing job on the kit. Doesn't help my money because every kit they bring out, pretty much I want to buy, and 50 quid a shirt is not really viable. But we've had some absolute, like the away shirt, which is purple, is absolutely lovely. It's one of my favourite Cov kits, going back in the early 90s where we wore that. So it's a lovely kit. So yeah, we in terms of off the field, I think we've got better. I think we have still got a long way to go, but I think we've learned a lot of lessons, and being back in Coventry, there is definitely a feel-good factor around the club, and we are doing well financially. Yeah. Obviously, the caveat that is if the situation with gambling sponsors coming, because obviously we have Ball Sports as our sponsor, is where if obviously they get removed, will we be able to get a sponsor in who pays as much money as a gambling sponsor does? And also, what happens if we don't have as good a season this season as expected? I still think there's an expectation we're probably going to have to sell one of our big three in the next 12 months or so. So that's O'Hare, Gyökeres or Hamer's going to probably have to go to, as we keep saying, the Brentford model of sell and reinvest.
Just going back to last season in the Championship, because I hinted in the intro that you finished 12th, and that was on the back of the first season in the Championship where you consolidated a bit and finished 16th. So in terms of last season, were Coventry fans happy with that little bit of improvement in establishing yourselves again as a Championship club, or was there a little bit of frustration that that you didn't kick on a little bit more?
I think it's one of those, you look at it and think 12th, it's progress. You look at the teams who we finished above. We finished above two of the teams that made the playoffs the year before. We finished above Swansea, and we finished above Barnsley, who sadly went down. The downside is you look at Luton and Huddersfield and you think, we missed an opportunity there. While Luton and Huddersfield are miles better than Coventry. And I think in certain areas, they've probably got slightly better players, but I don't think they were massively miles better than the Cov team. I think we just ran out a bit of steam. We had a lot of injuries, and we just got very short up front. We lost players at a key time. We lost Matty Godden for 2 key periods, and it kind of just put the skids on us. We lost him for a 2-game ban for the Fulham dive, and that kind of just changed things, and we never really looked the same team after that. He come back, and then obviously he did his appendix the day after we'd loaned Tyler Walker out, and we were just down to the bare bones on it. So I think if you look at it where we were, we probably overachieved the start of the season, and then we underachieved towards the end. We threw a lot of points away at home. I think some of our late equalisers masked the fact that we dropped some pretty poor results in. We lost 2-0 at home to Hull, which we were really, really poor against. And that was a massive, if we'd won that game, it would have put some massive pressure back on Sheffield United on it. But then we absolutely destroyed some really, really good teams. Sheffield United, we obliterated 4-1. Fulham, we obliterated 4-1. We won away at Fulham. We beat Forest. So yeah, I think it's just on our day we're competitive. I think the problem is we need to learn how to win ugly. I think that's what Luton and Huddersfield did very well. They didn't lose games, or they won ugly. They got an ugly 1-0.
Yeah, I mean that's the other side of the coin, really, isn't it? Because where you've come from as well. Because you have to consider that you were in League Two only 5 years ago. So that, I suppose there's that aspect to say, well, is the club still punching above its weight in terms of, Mark Robins having to squeeze as much as possible out of the players he has, at his disposal? I mean, and again, just in terms of the job Mark Robins has done, because he took over, as the club were heading towards League Two. I mean, are you able to kind of describe how high his stock is, with the Coventry fans at the moment?
It's quite funny because obviously when he left to go to Huddersfield, he'd said, I think a couple of days before, that he would bleed sky blue blood. And there were people when he come back, because I've still got the tweets and Facebook messages saved, that were really like calling him out about coming back and saying, what we're doing with this guy who's just deserted. But he gets the club, and I think he realises in hindsight, leaving when he did, it was the wrong choice, because obviously Huddersfield didn't work out for him. But him and Adi Vivash together, Adi Vivash has been a master stroke getting him in. His Chelsea connections, we get a lot of good players in via that, either on free transfers or players he's identified as ex-Chelsea players who he's worked with and come because they want to work with Adi because he's such a good coach on it. Him and Robbins together are a very, very good team. And I'm amazed that Mark Robbins doesn't get the bigger clubs having a look at him. I don't know whether it's because of the Huddersfield situation. He had a very good League One record. I think Championship, there was always a bit of a question mark over him. If you spoke to like Barnsley and Rotherham fans, I think he's answered any questions about, is he a good Championship manager? He's proved that the last 2 years. So I don't get why he's not considered for the bigger jobs. And I hope it won't happen, but I could see a situation if Dean Smith struggles at Norwich, where Norwich would come looking for a couple of guys from the Borough Middlesbrough podcast that started last season. They said if Warnock went, they would take Robbins in a heartbeat. And I'm just surprised he doesn't seem to get that bandied around with other names, with other jobs, even a Premier League club. I think he could do a decent job at the right club there.
Is that a genuine fear? Because you're saying that he kind of bleeds sky blue and he loves the club. So you've just rattled, Norwich. I know I think he played for Norwich, didn't he? He might have had a spell there. So, I mean, but is that a genuine fear, or do you think there's only the likes of Norwich or someone who he's got emotional ties with who he might actually jump ship for?
I'd probably say he's very similar. Probably journey's going to be like Eddie Howe was with Bournemouth. I don't think he'd want to leave Cov till he got us back up in the Premier League, or got us as close as he possibly could. I think the only way he'll leave Cov is either he gets a very, very good opportunity that's too good for him to turn down, or it goes so bad behind the scenes that he doesn't feel that he's able to do his job. I think he's very good at He's learned off one of the masters, Alex Ferguson. He's very good at using the media to his own ends, and he's very good at getting what he wants with the board. He will, like he said, we didn't have any money to sign anyone in January, and then Jake Bidwell signs because we needed a left back. He's now said, oh, I need to speak to the board about getting another loan signing in. We're pretty much sure we'll get another loan signing in besides the 3 that we've got. So he's very streetwise and clever, and I think he just managed fans' expectations. He was speaking to the fans in Spain, and he said, they said, what's your ambition? He said, stay up first. That's got to be your aim first, which is right. And anything else you do after that's a bonus. But deep down, he'll know that we are on our day more than a match for anyone in the Championship. And he's a really good manager, and he does get the best out of players that maybe don't work as well at other clubs. There's plenty of players I could reel off who he's had, who've had real good seasons at Cov under Robbins and gone elsewhere and not done it. McNulty's the classic one. McNulty at Cov was brilliant. Everywhere else he's done, he's been bang average.
You started to mention some of the business he's got done this summer, and I know one of them that Mark Robbins has taken on someone familiar to Sunderland fans in terms of Callum Doyle, who signed on loan from Manchester City as he did with us last year. Got another loan deal for Jonathan Panzo, 21-year-old from Nottingham Forest, and another central defender. And then just this week, I think Coventry have managed to make another loan signing in Teo Aramola. I got that right the third time. I think is a left-sided 18-year-old from Crystal Palace. There's a permanent deal that was done for Casey Palmer from Bristol City as well. So, I mean, what's the current feeling on the business that Mark Robbins has managed to get done so far in the summer window?
I think we obviously tried to get Jake Clark-Salter back, who was with us last season. Obviously, Sunderland fans will know him. He played a bit for you guys. He was very good, but he was injury prone. He's gone to QPR. Not convinced that's probably the best move for him. I don't think QPR potentially are going to be any big shake-up this year. But obviously, it's London-based. Potentially, he's got offered more money. So he's a bit of a loss and a bit disappointing. We obviously would have liked to get Ian Matson back, who's gone to Burnley, but I'm not convinced Burnley's the right move for him if he's going to be playing left back, which is what they said. He's not a left back, he's a left wing back. He'll get exposed at Championship at left back. So looking at the lads we've got in, can't really comment on Doyle because I've not seen him play that much, but generally the feedback that I've had from Sunderland fans is how good he is and good on the ball. I think what we'll possibly see long term is Dom Hyam, Doyle and Panzo potentially as our back 3. I don't think Doyle will start first game of the season. Panzo, I'll say it now, I think he will be a star in the Championship and he will probably get in the team of the year. He looks that good. He's scored 3 goals in 2 pre-season games. He's brilliant on the ball. He's got pace. He's physical, good in the air. I think the guy is an absolute star in the making, and I think he'll be one that if he has a good year with us, I think Forest will get him in the first team. He's one that's been on our radar for 2-3 years, and we tried desperately to get him and just not had the money, but he looks really, really good. And the advantage with him, which probably Clark-Salter didn't have, was Clark-Salter was quick, but he wasn't that quick. I think Panzo's a lot quicker and he's a lot better at turning the ball over. I know Doyle did that a lot for you. He'd go forward and nick the ball and get possession. I think Panzo's really, really good at that. Clark-Salter, a lot of time he did that, he'd get turned and then he'd get roasted. And he could get a bit bullied by, I know Adebayo at Luton give him an absolute roasting. The lad from Palace, I'll call him Teo because I don't want to butcher his name. He's really promising. Don't think he'll start on Sunday. I think Jake Bidwell will start. He may well get a cameo off the bench with the 5 subs. Real good pace, looks good on the ball. Looks quite big, actually, for an 18-year-old. Highly thought of. A lot of people who've watched him play for the Irish youth team said really excited by him. Casey Palmer, on the performances I've seen, he's a big physical lad. So all the 4 lads we've got in have got a bit of physique about them, which is probably something we've lacked, where we look a bit small and lightweight. Good on the ball, can pick a pass. He's just not fully match fit. I don't think he may well be involved on Sunday because he's got a slight injury, but he's someone who I think in the next season is only going to get better the longer the season goes on, which is good because we haven't really had anyone to play the 10 role bar Callum O'Hare. We signed Bright and Bakari, who decided that he would just not turn up and be the lad that destroyed you guys at the Stadium of Light in the 5-4 game. He just totally lost his plot and just was a bad apple and got bombed off. So that was a shame because he would have been someone really exciting. We're probably going to see another couple of new faces come in, but I don't think it'll be anyone before the game. I think Robbins wants to get another load in, and there's a possibility that we'll bomb off Todd Kane and maybe bring another right back in, but I don't know how soon that'll happen. But yeah, Panzo definitely, Doyle, wait and see. I think we'll pick and manage his games. Teo, I think he'll be our first choice left back. It's just a case of when. And Casey Palmer will be managed through his games.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Callum Doyle does, because he's got bags of potential, but he burnt out a little bit in a full League One season. So it's going to be interesting to see how he gets on in the Championship. And with those players bedding in, I mean, I was just looking at the last result you had there. That was a goalless draw at Portsmouth at the weekend in pre-season. So, I mean, how have Coventry looked in pre-season? I mean, is it given people a bit of a confidence boost in how they've looked in the summer, or is there a few concerns?
We've actually been flying in pre-season for once. We've won every game. We've been scoring goals. We haven't really conceded that many. We beat Nottingham Forest 3-1 in Spain. We absolutely destroyed Wolves under 23 side. I think we won about 8-1. Played really well at Warsaw. Played very well at Portsmouth and also Oxford we beat. The only concern is we probably gifted Portsmouth a bit too many chances, and Oxford had a few chances against us. They didn't take them. My concern may be obviously a Championship team with a bit better quality probably wouldn't not take those chances. But I think it's been a very positive pre-season. There's been lots of bonuses. People have improved from the previous season, and we've got a few good youngsters that are finding their way, and will be exciting to see how they get on. But I think a lot of it is the same old faces. I don't think we're going to be massively changing our formation. We'll still play the 3-4-1-2 system, or we might play two behind Godden or Vic, depending how we do it. But yeah, I don't think we're going to do anything massively different. But the worry is it's been too good a pre-season, because then you think what's going to happen, because we have a phrase, "cov it up," and yeah, that's the worry. It's been too good a pre-season, and it's setting us up for a fall, whereas most of the good seasons where we've done absolutely awful pre-season. So, but yeah, having a good pre-season for Cov is very rare.
Well, you describe it as flying in pre-season. I mean, has that raised the expectation level a little bit? I mean, are fans actually thinking because of that, we can make a push for the top 6 this season?
I think there's I think there's a possibility of top 6. One of the guys who does the EFL punditry, Gab Sutton, he's actually put us 4th when he did his review, and I looked at that and was like, that's probably maybe a bit OTT. But then there's other fans. I've said we could finish 6. I could make an argument for us finishing mid-table. I think there's an expectation that we want to see improvement, and if we keep the big 3, then we've got a chance. But we need to keep them fit. The worry is there's still 4 or 5 weeks of the transfer window. I'd say losing Callum O'Hare would have the same impact as you guys losing Ross Stewart. He's that integral to your team that I don't know how you easily replace him to get someone who's going to do that job instantly. So that's the worry on it. Until the transfer window's done and dusted and locked, you can't really say with any certainty Cov are definitely going to do this.
Yeah, and you've mentioned quite a few players who, that you've either brought in on loan or somebody who might step up from last season. So, I mean, who will Alex Neil be kind of concerned about when he's doing his homework on Coventry?
I would probably say Matty Goddard. Obviously, Matty Goddard had such a real good season last season. For Cov, his goals per game record was outstanding. I think only Mitrovic had a better one. And he loves the goal on Sky Sports, as you guys will well know. Last time we played you, 2 minutes in, Matty Goddard scored. Victor Gyökeres, probably, I would argue, he's probably one of the best strikers outside in the Championship, outside the Premier League. Brilliant all-round game, good, strong on the ball. His performance away at Southampton in the FA Cup was one of the best performances you'd see from a striker. Caused them no end of trouble for 120 minutes. And absolutely really roughed up some real good Premier League defenders on it. And really the other ones, the obvious ones, Callum O'Hare and Gus Hamer. Everyone who follows Cov knows what they're like. The one who's interesting, who probably goes a lot under the radar, is Ben Sheaf. I think he will have a real good season this season. He's added goals and assists towards the end of the season, and the lad looks really good. I could see him maybe being the one that comes out from nowhere and gets the Premier League move, possibly before any of the other three on it. The interesting dilemma we have at the moment is who's going to play in goal, because we've obviously got Ben Wilson, who's from Sunderland, and I think he may well start ahead of Simon Moore, which is a big call because Simon Moore was very, very good for us at the start of last season, but then he had a bit of a dip in form and tailed off a bit, and Wilson got the jersey. So that's the interesting dilemma. That's probably the biggest call for Mark Robbins on Sunday, who plays in goal.
Yeah. And again, I mean, looking at Coventry's away record last season, it was the 8th best in the Championship, where Coventry won 7 and drew 8 out of the 23 played away from home. But I mean, how are you viewing the a trip to the stadium? I like to kick things off. I mean, I think you kind of mentioned it earlier, because, I mean, teams who get promoted are a bit of an unknown quantity. I think even Sunderland fans aren't sure how some of our players are going to make that step up. So, I mean, how are Coventry fans feeling about the opening day fixture?
I think there's obviously a bit of skepticism on, is it a good game or isn't it? I could make an argument why Sunderland could beat us. I could make an argument why we'll beat Sunderland. I think it's down to, the way I would pick it out is, I think it's down to Sunderland's defence against Coventry's attack, and how much Alex Neil set Sunderland up to attack us. I think if Sunderland sit in and make the game tight, it'll be very hard for us to break teams down, because I don't think our 2 wing backs we have at the moment are particularly great crossing wise. I think Bidwell and Dabo work well, but I don't think the ammunition they send in is as good as maybe like Todd Kane was when he was on form, but he's kind of out the picture. And obviously like Maatson or Adaramo would do for us. So that's the interesting dilemma, is the fact that you've got such a big crowd going to force the Sunderland team onto attackers. And if they do, that's when we're at our best, because we can break on teams. We've got the mobility in the team and the pace that we can cause teams problems. But yeah, I expect Neil will probably set it up not to lose. So it's really I think it's one of the hardest games to call, because everyone knows from experience, first game back in the Championship, there is always a surprise result. There's a team who win you don't expect to. And normally it's one of the new promoted teams get a result you wouldn't expect them to do on it. So it'll be challenging on it. But I think this thing, I could make arguments, maybe the goalkeeper's a weak link for you guys, but then you could say the same about Cov if Ben Wilson plays. Ben Wilson can have a worldie, but he can throw a mistake in. How's the back three going to work? If we go 2 up front, is that going to make us a bit more short in midfield and you guys overrun us? So it's a real interesting tactical dilemma. And I do rate Neil. I think he's a real good manager and he's very good on his tactics. So I think it depends how we decide we want to play it. I think Cov fans would expect us to go and attack, but I'm not sure that's maybe the best way to play it.
Yeah, and I mean the opening day of the season, it always feels like a big game, and especially for Sunderland, returning to the Championship, so it's got that big game feeling for us. But I mean, in terms of Coventry, obviously it is the opening day of the season. I looked at the next fixture. You've got Rotherham United at home next up in the league after you play us. And I mean, probably on paper, it's a good opportunity to get off to a flying start. So, I mean, is there that big game feeling about Sunday kind of creeping in with the Coventry fans thinking, actually, on paper, we could really get off to a good start this season? Yeah,
if you look at our first 5 games, they're pretty good start. If you compare it with last season, I think our first 5 games, we had Forest, who'd been there and there about playoffs. We obviously had Barnsley, who were there and thereabouts the playoffs. I think we had Reading, who were in the playoff picture. Blackpool had just come up, and I can't remember else. It might be Millwall or Borough, or something like that. So we actually had quite a toughish start on paper. The problem with this season is it looks quite a bit of an easier start on paper, but then that's a double-edged sword, because if you don't get the points on the board, then you're going to play chasing football. And Rotherham have always been a bit of a bogey side for us. We've always kind of, I know we've won the last 2 against them, but that was COVID, so that might have made a bit of a difference. Like I said, I don't like playing newly promoted teams early on because, as I said, there's always the risk of it. But I think there is an expectation. I think some Cov fans, if you read the social media, I think we're going to go and win 2 or 3-0 against you guys. I'm not convinced it's going to be that sort of game. I personally think it'll probably be a boring 0-0 draw after it's been hyped up by Sky as this great game to watch. And I think that's the problem on it. But yeah, it's I think there's an expectation, but I think I would like to say there's a realism. You look at Nottingham Forest. Nottingham Forest lost to us first game of last season, and look where they are now, and look what they're doing. It's not the end of the world if we lose, and it's not we're going to win the league if we win. And it's the same for Sunderland. If you win, you're not guaranteed to stay up, and if you lose, you're not going to go down. So I think it's just a bit of realism on it and looking at the bigger picture. I think what I want to see is a bit of a performance and show that we've learned a bit of a lessons from last season, because we did drop some silly points away from home when we were in control of games and we give silly goals away, or we just make daft mistakes.
Yeah. And I know, it doesn't sometimes mean a huge amount, but I know Coventry haven't got the best records travelling to Wearside, and we mentioned that 5-4. That was the first win for Coventry at Sunderland since 1977, and the last fixture between the two sides of the Stadium Light was November 2019. Which I think we salvaged a draw in the last minute through Benji Kimpioka getting the late equaliser. So it hasn't been the happiest of hunting grounds for Coventry, but again, doesn't mean too much. But I'll kind of take anything I can get ahead of the game to calm the nerves. But I didn't get a chance to check the away allocation given to Coventry. But is there a big following travelling up, and are you going to be one of them, Glenn?
I won't be we're going up. I've got, unfortunately, family commitments on Sunday, so I'll be watching it on Sky. I think it was possibly over 2,000. I know we had an initial allocation. Can't remember how many it was, and I think we got an extra 500 off you guys. So I think there'll be a decent away turnout on there. We pretty much sell out the away allocation. I think this first game might be slightly different. The kickoff time's not great. There's obviously the problems with the train, and obviously cost of living, transport, etc. Everything's going stupidly priced. So I think that might have a slight impact on fans coming up. But yeah, there'll be a big noise. So wherever we go, we haven't make ourselves loud. We'll be quite good trying to outsing 35,000 Mackhams. That might be quite a bit of a test, but it'll be a good away following. There always is. So it'll be good to see the Scarborough Army in voice.
So I think for Sunderland fans, 12 o'clock kickoff on a Sunday, it just depends how heavy the Saturday night was and how loud I think the home fans will be. So, but yeah, we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, on that, hope you enjoy the game from wherever you're watching it from, Glenn, and thank you very much for taking the time out for us and joining us. It's been a pleasure, and barring Sunday, all the best for the season ahead.
Same to you, Chris. Well, all the best for the rest of the season, bar the trip to the CBS. But yeah, I think Sunderland will be fine. I think, like I said, yeah. Alex Neil's a good manager. I think you've got the best chance of the 3 promoted teams on it. And as I think I did a piece for your podcast as a written piece, I said you're going to win games that you don't expect to win, and you're going to lose games that you should win. It's just having a sense of realism and perspective on it. You're not doomed after 10 games, and you're not safe after 20, 25 games. It's just the Championship. A week is a very long time in football on it. So yeah, all the best for the rest of the season. And I think for if you offer Cov fans a draw now, I think most of them would bite your hand off Sunday.
Yeah, that's good advice for the season ahead for Sunderland fans in the Championship. Brilliant. Thanks, Glenn.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks again, everyone, for listening. Keep a look out at ROKER Report for all the build-up ahead of the game against Coventry on Sunday, and keep an eye out on all the usual places for the next pod that should be dropping very soon. But from us, bye for now.